Hello everyone, welcome back to the Budget Sportsman. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. Today we are going to be doing another hunting saddle review. It's been quite a while since I've done a saddle review, but today we're going to be taking a look at the Buzzard Roost saddle, and then over the rest of the summer and fall, I'm hopefully going to be releasing some other saddle reviews as well as some other saddle related content as we gear up for this fall's hunting season. Now the Buzzard Roost saddle here is certainly not new to the market. It's been around for a while. It has some great reviews and has a good reputation in the industry. But one of the things that makes this saddle unique is that it is a two-panel saddle, and it is one of the only, I'm hesitant to say the only one because I have a hard time keeping up with them all, but it's one of the only ones that is independently adjustable between the top and the bottom panel, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But the reason why that's kind of unique for me is because while I've sat in two-panel saddles before at saddle hunter meetups and those kind of things, I've never really gotten to spend a whole lot of time and really get to know a two-panel saddle. The folks over at Buzzard Roost were nice enough to send this over to me so that I could spend some time with it and make this review. And so far I have to say the reputation of this being a very comfortable saddle is certainly true. All right, so in just a minute, I'm gonna walk you through all the features of the saddle, and then we're gonna go ahead and get in the tree, and I'm gonna show you some of the tips and tricks that I've discovered of how to adjust this to really get the ultimate comfort. But before we do, I wanted to show you this little American flag patch that's right here on the bottom of the saddle. Now, I wasn't able to find out a lot of information about this on their website, but recently I watched an interview of someone at the Mobile Hunter Expo interviewing Benny, the owner of Buzzard Roost, and Benny mentioned that this little patch right here costs about $10 or an additional $10 cost when you're purchasing your saddle. However, the company Buzzard Roost does not pocket that money. Instead, they use that to donate to various charities, particularly those charities that are dealing with veterans. He even mentioned recently being involved in a mental health campaign for veterans as well. So I thought that was really, really cool that when you're buying this saddle, you're also being a part of supporting our United States veterans. And not only is that part cool, I think it looks pretty cool as well. All right, so let's go ahead and talk through the features of this saddle. Now, as I've already mentioned, really this saddle is different from others that I've reviewed in the past because this is a two-panel saddle, something I've not reviewed before on the channel. And I've heard great things about its comfort, and so far I'm finding that to be true. Now, as I hold it here, you can definitely see the two different panels. And one thing that I've noticed right off the bat is that the material used here, the webbing, these big wide rows of webbing here are fairly soft. Some other saddles that I've tried and used extensively in the past use a little bit stiffer webbing. I'm not really 100% sure which way is better, but I have noticed that it's pretty soft. It feels like you can just sort of ball this up easily, and if you wanted to put it in a pack, you certainly could do that. There's nothing that's really stiff about this saddle, and so that's kind of an interesting feature. Now, obviously, it's a two-panel saddle, and you get these two straps right here to adjust it up and down. So if you want to, you can pull those straps down, and really what you get there, you can tighten it down all the way, and you almost get just a single-panel saddle that's really tall and very, very adjustable. Of course, on the other hand, if you want to extend those out, these are pretty easy to adjust even in the tree. I'll show you that in a little bit, but you can just extend these straps out and you can really adjust how much tension and where that tension is all the way even up into the small of your back. You can cup it down low. Wherever you need the tension, you can certainly get it. Now, if you want to, and you don't even want these straps connected, of course, they do have these two buckles right here where you can completely disconnect them. For me, in my experience so far, I find that pretty much I'm always going to want to keep them connected. It just keeps things together. It's going to keep this panel from just falling down your legs, and it keeps everything nice and connected. So, but it is interesting that if for some reason you wanted to disconnect them, you certainly can do that. Now, another interesting point right down here is that you've got this little thick web right here, and it has the leg straps on it. So if you're a guy who doesn't really care to use the leg straps, they are removable. All it is just girth hitched. It's not difficult to remove at all. Again, you would just kind of pull them out through that. Hopefully you can see they're just girth hitched right there. Personally, I do like having leg straps on my saddle, so I'm gonna leave them on. Now, as we come around to what would be the side of the saddle as you're wearing it, this would be the top over here, this is the bottom panel, and this is the side. You're gonna see what makes this saddle so unique over other saddles on the market, even over other two-panel saddles. Because many two-panel saddles on the market are gonna have a bridge loop that goes from the bottom panel and goes up around and goes to the top panel. And as you adjust the Prusik knots here of your bridge and your adjustment system, you can adjust the bottom to top tension. But what happens is you kind of are going to be in a give and a take situation. It's going to go back and forth. What this is, what Buzzard Roost has done, is they put a bridge loop here, you can hopefully see, on both the top and the bottom panels, and they made it basically independently adjustable. Now, in my experience, there is a little bit of give and take, that there is going to be some adjustment still. When you adjust one, you may need to adjust the other. But when I get the bottom panel set just right and I'm really comfortable, I can adjust the top panel without affecting the bottom panel at all. And I can adjust this to get just the perfect comfort that I'm looking for. Now, I will say this. When I first got this out of the box and I first sat in the tree, I didn't instantly find the perfect setting and the perfect comfort. And I was a little bit confused. But as I took some time to sit in it more times and as I played with it, I realized how comfortable the saddle can be if you take the time to learn it. So if you get it out of the box and your first sit isn't just like ultimate perfect comfort, don't be discouraged. Take the time to play with it. And I'll give you some tips in just a minute of how to do that. But go ahead and take the time to play with it. Play with the top, play with the bottom, see how they affect each other. Play with your bridge length, play with your tether height. And I think if you play around and really learn this system, this is a very versatile system that's going to help just about anybody to find a really comfortable setting in your saddle. Now, another thing that I'd like you to notice about this is that they do put a bridge tender in here. It's a little piece of am steel, and it's really neatly done. There's this little loop up here, this little plastic loop that it goes through. And this is a very, very easy system to adjust. Of course, there's no weight in it right now, but if I grab this, I mean, it's effortless. It just pulls right through. Of course, pull it back the other way. Very easy as well. And I'll show you that again once we get up in the tree and there's a little bit of weight on the system as well. But the really cool thing about this is when you order your saddle from Buzzard Roost, there's a drop-down menu and it will allow you to select if you want the bridge adjustment tender to be on the right side or on the left side. I do also want to really quickly mention the weight of the Buzzard Roost saddle because it's something I haven't often included in my saddle reviews, but I've realized that I spend a lot of time thinking about the weight of my platform and my sticks and my camera equipment, but I often don't really pay much attention to how much the saddle itself weighs. And this saddle weighs 33 ounces. That's just 1 ounce more than 2 pounds. Now, there is one more design feature that I wanted to show you, and that is the rows of Molle. There's a row of Molle right here, which is across the top panel, and a second row of Molle right here, which is across the top of the bottom panel. Now, in a moment, I'm going to show you the waist belt and leg straps, but what you need to know right now is that the waist belt is connected to the top panel, this smaller and thinner panel. So I tried climbing recently with my dump pouch and my rappel line attached to the bottom panel on the Molle right here. And it just felt like it was really flopping around. It felt like I was wanting to pull this down. Of course, you've got the support straps here, but over here, it's just going to kind of pull down. So this is going to be personal preference, but I am much more comfortable carrying weight up the tree with it attached to the top portion of this saddle. So I'd like to carry my sticks up the tree attached to the Molle on either side of my saddle. And I often put my platform right in the middle on the back, again attached to the Molle right in the middle in the back. For me, I'm going to want all of those weighty items attached to the top panel where I can cinch that waist belt down and have everything really supported. When I attach those heavier items to the bottom panel, it just feels like things are flopping around a bit more and not nearly as supported. All right, so let's go ahead and put on this saddle so that you can see the waist belt and the leg straps. As you can see, I've got a closed bridge on this saddle. But if you do want an openable bridge that is available from Buzzard Roost, there is a slight upcharge and a slightly longer delay to get your saddle. With the closed bridge, all you're gonna have to do is actually just step through it. And you can see I'm holding the bridge and I've already got the waist belt straps in my hands. I can just pull that up now. And it's got this really, really nice raptor buckle. Just stick it in like that. And to cinch up the tension, just pull on the tag end. If you want to make it looser, just grab the buckle and release some tension just like that. Now to open the buckle, you just push on these two little tabs and it comes right open. Now, one thing I did notice is sometimes when I'm putting this in, it feels a little tight, like a little bit rough, like maybe it needs lubricated or maybe the tolerances are just a little bit too tight. And of course, that might just be the particular model that I got. Now, to put on your leg straps, reach through your legs, and there's buckles here also. You know, a lot of saddles do use G-hooks. These use buckles as well. And I can say these ones are really smooth. They just slide in there really, really nicely. And you're going to notice that these are attached to the bottom panel, whereas the waist belt is attached to the top panel. And that's just going to keep everything sort of in place. Now, one thing that I noticed is that to adjust the tension on these buckles are just a little bit tighter than on the waist belt, but it's the same thing. You just pull on the strap to tighten it up or pull up on the buckle to loosen the tension. And of course, if you want to take them off, all you do is release that buckle. And again, these operate really, really smoothly. All right, now that I'm up in the tree, there's a couple of things that I want to address. If you're a guy who climbs with a lineman's belt, like I do most of the time, then you're going to have to decide, do you want that lineman's belt attached to this top loop right here, or to the bottom loop. Now I can tell you that for me, I really prefer the lineman's belt connected to the top loop. When I'm climbing the tree, I want that tension to be right here around the back, pulling me in toward the tree, which is the feeling that I get when I'm connected to the top loop. I don't care so much about it being connected more like I'm sitting into it. I want that tension to be able to lean back into that lineman's belt and into that saddle as I'm hanging my neck stick or as I'm hanging my platform. So again, that's probably going to be personal preference, but I would highly recommend that you try it out on the top loop. All right, now the next thing that I want to show you is this bridge adjustment with the tender now that we're up in the tree. I've been sitting in the tree for a few minutes. I've had weight on this thing, but I want to show you how easy it is. So I'm going to stand up, take the weight off of my bridge, and with 2 fingers, I'm just going to pull. Very, very, very little effort. And to come back down, I'm just going to grab this knot and slide it back down. Again, very little effort. This is probably one of the smoothest and easiest to adjust bridges that I've ever tested. Now the next thing I'm going to do when I get to the tree with just about any saddle is I'm going to loosen the waist belt. Typically I'm going to climb with it pretty tight, and I'm going to have that supporting all the weight of my sticks, my platform, my saddlebags. But to get really comfortable on just about any saddle, I usually need to leave a little bit of extra tension out of that waist belt. And of course right now, even with the leg straps, they're just feeling a little bit too tight. So I'm just going to adjust those so there's no pressure points, nothing pulling. I am going to leave them connected for safety, but there's not going to be any real pressure on them. Now the next thing that I feel in this saddle is that this panel right here, the bottom panel, is up a little too high. It just doesn't feel like it's really supporting me. So I'm going to take some tension and add some tension into these 2 straps so I've got a little bit more flexibility to adjust these 2 panels. And then you're going to notice there's this loop right here. This is a really heavy duty loop. This serves multiple purposes. You could hook things to it, but for right now, I'm just going to take my thumbs, stick them in those 2 loops, and pull that saddle down. And already that feels so much better. All right, now when it comes to getting comfortable in your saddle, no matter what saddle that is, there's almost always a way to adjust the bridge to the bridge loop connection. Most saddles have some sort of a prusik, as this does, that connects the bridge to the bridge loop, and then you move that bridge connection up and down that bridge loop to get the comfort that you want. Often I think of that as basically just adjusting the angle. There have been times that I've been standing in a saddle and I feel the feeling like I'm going to be just dumped out. There's too much pressure on the top side and there's nothing really supporting me from the bottom side, and I sort of feel like I'm just going to slide out. Well, that's an indicator that I probably need to move that connection down the bridge loop to bring more pressure onto the bottom side and get more pressure here where I don't feel like I'm going to slide out. On the other hand, there have been times where I have felt like, man, I've got all of the pressure on the bottom side right now. There's just so much pressure and I really need to adjust that to be able to be comfortable. Well, then that is a good indication that I need to move the connection up the bridge loop to bring a little bit more tension into the top side and not have all of that tension on the bottom side. And for me, ultimate comfort is when I get a really good pressure between top and bottom that's very even. Now, if you take that principle and apply it to the Buzzard Roost, you're going to be on the right track, but you have to remember there's a little bit extra level of complexity because you do have the option to do that in 2 different places. So for me, the first thing that really helps is to take that principle and apply it to the bottom panel first. I'm going to take some tension out of these 2 straps right here. I'm going to make sure there's enough slack that I can move the panels a little bit independently, and I'm going to try to get the bottom panel situated first. Now, right now, it feels pretty good for me, but I do feel like maybe there's still a little bit too much tension on the bottom. So I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to adjust this a little bit more on both sides towards the top of that bridge loop, and that should bring me back to where I've got a little bit more tension more evenly and a little bit more tension toward the top. And now right there, that feels really good with just a minute little adjustment. Now, when it comes to the top panel here, you're going to do the same thing, but there's also an element where you're adjusting the 2 panels kind of front to back. So the further around that I come on this bridge loop, it feels like it's pulling this panel further forward and creating more slack in this one because it's further back. Now for my body shape, and the way that I hunt, I need to be able to pull this one a bit forward to get the pressure that I need on the small of my back. So what I'm going to do then in order to bring this one forward is I need to bring this one even further around the bridge loop. That basically shortens this band because I'm bringing it further back here, the connection point. And if I do that on both sides now and I shorten it just a little bit, now I've got some really nice pressure right here in the small of my back. At least that's the way I'm running it right now, of course. And it feels very, very comfortable. Now you can probably see, hopefully, that connection point is on the bottom side of this bridge loop. So while that worked very well to bring it forward, the question is, why did I go down rather than up? Well, let's try it. Let's go ahead and make a big adjustment here and try to bring it forward the same way. I'm going to try to go to about the same place on that bridge loop, only on the top side, but kind of an equal distance back. And I'm going to bring this one around. Now, the idea here is that it did the same thing. It pulled it forward. I still got pressure, but I can tell it's more digging into the top here. My ribs coming down the side of my back here, it feels like it's digging in. It's just not nearly as comfortable, at least for me and the position I'm currently in. So I'm going to bring these back around again, and I want to be on the bottom side. That's what is comfortable for me. And then I can sort of adjust the front to back by how far back this loop I come. So again, adjust the other side back to the bottom. It changes the position quite a bit of this band, but now it's feeling really, really nice. Now, one of the things that I've always wondered with a two-panel saddle is if it eliminates the need for a backband. I love to hunt with a backband, and I typically connect mine up here to the carabiner between my bridge and my tether, and I run it back, and I often have it pretty high up my back. In fact, there's several hunting videos where you can probably see as a deer's coming where I'm releasing the tension on that backband and dropping it down to make sure it's plenty out of the way. Now, I've tried several times here, and I'm going to loosen this back up a little bit here, where I'm going to put those connection points more out toward the end of that bridge loop, and that creates a little bit less pressure back here. I'm going to loosen these straps, and I'm going to try to pull this up. And you can see right there, I've got it up. You know, it's above the small of my back, I would say, but it's not high up my back. And right now, I don't feel a lot of pressure, so I am going to try to shorten that up again. I probably lengthened it too much. I've got a little bit of pressure there. I'm going to keep adjusting. All right, there I've got some pressure that feels like it's supportive. Again, it's just barely above the small of my back. I would say it's still kind of in my lower back area. I have tried several times to try to lift this all the way up, and I'm going to just let as much slack into these as I can. I've tried to lift it all the way up to where I would normally have a backband way up here, and the truth is, because the connection point is down here, it just wants to sort of pull down. It doesn't stay. You can probably see as soon as I lean into it, it just slides down. And so for me, it doesn't take the place of a backband, at least the way I normally wear it. But the interesting thing that I have found is that because I've got this lower back support that's much more than I typically get in a single panel saddle, I do think it might eliminate the need for a backband. I don't think I'm really going to know that till I'm halfway through the rut where I've been hunting every day and I'm tired and I really want that extra support. But I will say this, if you did run this saddle with a backband and you'd have this here in your lower back and a backband up here in your upper back, you would have a ton of support, and I think you'd be super, super comfortable. Now, another thing that I do want to mention here is that no matter what saddle you choose to hunt from, your tether height plays a huge factor into how comfortable you are. Now, with a lot of saddles, I do prefer to run my tether height up here about forehead height, maybe eyeball height. And one thing that I found with the Buzzard Roost saddle in particular, and it is true of other saddles as well, is that sometimes just lowering that tether height just a little bit can really change the angle of your saddle. And it can pull a little bit more forward rather than up, and it can really change the comfort. And in this case, I do find that I'm a little bit more comfortable with a slightly lower tether height. I would say this as well. Don't take these ideas that I have as the absolute way that you have to set up this saddle to be comfortable. The truth is, this is an extremely, extremely versatile saddle, and you're not going to know exactly what's right for you until you play around with it. I mean, it may come out of the box perfect, or it may be that it takes you a sit or two of just really playing, making little movements here and there, or trying big movements to see what it really does until you find that perfect, comfortable position that's just right for you. Well, y'all, I hope you enjoyed my review of the Buzzard Roost 2-panel saddle. I've really enjoyed testing it, and I'm looking forward to getting it out into the hunting woods this fall. Let me know what you think of the saddle and this video down in the comments. And if you already own one of these, let me know your favorite thing about it down in the comments as well. And let me know if there's something I missed. Until next time, remember to get off YouTube and get outdoors into God's great creation.